Of course, some people have argued that the Supreme Court doesn't need to take that into consideration when weighing the constitutionality of a provision. But I want to get specifically your take and anything that you've discovered about this Sensenbrenner character, because he's an interesting guy, right? Yeah. He's sort of a backbench. Well, I shouldn't say backbench. He's a front bench. He's a member of the Republican Party leadership. He's a chairman of.
So he was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee back in 2006 when the last time that the Voting Rights Act was reauthorized.
Of course, currently it's now Bob Goodlatte from Virginia. But he's expected to play a crucial role in this because of his seniority, because of the fact that he was so instrumental in the past on that bill.
Right.
Is this the kind of person that would be willing to stand down some of the kind of, frankly, Tea Party right-wing pressure that will come as part of all of this? I mean,
this is the new variable that's being put in here. Back in 2006, you didn't have that Tea Party voting bloc of about 50 to 60 members of Congress, and so you had a much more, I don't want to say more moderate Republican Party, but you did not have that.
I think it's
pushback.
Fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, the parties continue to drift further to the right. The other thing is, I mean, if it's obvious, but if this thing is going to get passed, if they're going to come up with a new formula, you're going to need to have bipartisan support. So I would say that at this stage right now, Sensenbrenner is probably the best that the Democrats are going to get. And Sensenbrenner and Lewis are going to be at the heart of any sort of deal that comes out of the House. On the other hand, you also had Republicans, the House Judiciary Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee had the hearing when Sensenbrenner and Lewis came to, and they were sort of moving in a more progressive direction to getting this formula fixed. In the House, you had a hearing that was chaired by Trent Franks, who was one of 33 members of Congress to vote against reauthorization back in 2006. And so in the House Republican Party, the House Republicans are I would say, far more ambivalent about the necessity of coming up with a new formula, and that hearing does not necessarily bode well.
One of the most interesting things to me, Cole, is this idea of a geographic distinction. Because to my mind, I think that the southern states actually have a point in that at this point, there's I think a fairly relatively substantial history on the part of many Midwestern states and the part of many Appalachian states that for voter discrimination of their own. When I think of the voter ID laws, when I think of the lack of funding and adequate staffing of some of these voter precincts, could we see something that goes more universal and just establishes preclearance for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I would say that at this point in Congress, that seems very, very unlikely that that's going to happen. But we'll see. I mean, the southern states in particular, if there is ever any evidence of the fact that preclearance was necessary, we know that, in fact, the day of the Shelby County Holder decision, you had Texas and Mississippi state governments announcing that they were going to be moving ahead with their voter ID laws that they had passed and that were actually being blocked by the Justice Department. So what we could see in the next few months actually is a sort of this could embolden Republicans, people that want to press back on voting rights and move ahead with whether it's redistricting proposals on the local level, whether it's state level initiatives to implement voter ID laws. But sort of the longer that this is in the this is up in the air, we could see a sort of more aggressive pushback. And so that's what sort of makes the effort in Congress so necessary, is that it's the longer this stays up in the air, the more voting rights could be pressed back. And so it's an urgent task that Congress is charged with right now.
And of course, we're going to be following your reporting, Cole, to find out and follow up on that urgent task.